This little girl was shivering and hiding under the covers. She was terrified. Suddenly a huge hand came out and grabbed her. This young girl's name was Sophie. She lived in an orphanage in London. Sophie was always sullen. She had trouble sleeping at night, reading by torchlight under the covers, when an unusual cat and a noise outside the house. But Sophie was curious and went to the window and saw a giant hand on the corner of the street. When the giant in the cloak spotted Sophie too, the two of them confirmed their eyes. Immediately, the giant came towards the orphanage. Sophie was so frightened that she ducked under the covers, but it was too late. The giant reached out and took Sophie away. Hiding under the flowery blanket, the giant moves deftly through the trees. Soon he is sweeping through the trees like the wind, jumping into the clouds, and soon, Sophie was taken into the giant's kingdom, where he lived. Once back there, Sophie was hung up, and the giant began to sharpen his sword. Sophie was terrified and looked for an exit, but she accidentally knocked something over. The giant spotted Sophie immediately. He turned back to Sophie and told her, "Unless you have wings, you can't get out unless you have wings." Then he put Sophie in the cauldron, and took his knife, and chopped up the giant vegetables. Sophie looked very frightened. She thought the giant was going to eat her. She immediately begged for mercy. The giant laughed when he heard this. He told Sophie, "I never eat people." The giant was worried that Sophie would tell everyone if she saw him. That's why he brought Sophie into the giant's kingdom. Besides that, he also warned Sophie, if she wandered off in the land of giants, the other giants would eat Sophie. And he also told Sophie that he was a dwarf in the land of giants. And that's when a very tough-looking giant arrived. The old man looked very small in front of him. The giant said fiercely, "The sound of your voice just now woke me up." Soon he changed his target. He smelled a human being and asked the old man if he was hiding humans. Sophie was terrified at the sight. She ran for cover. The old man hurriedly said no, but the fierce giant said, "I smell a human. I'm going to eat her." Then he started looking for her. Sophie was so scared she went straight into the stinky melon, and the old man tried to distract the giant, to distract him from eating the stinky melon. At this point, the old man didn't know that Sophie had already gotten into the stinky melon. The giant hates vegetarians, but he smelled Sophie's scent. He picked it up anyway. He started sniffing it with his nose. Sophie was inside the melon, so the melon smelled different. He opened his mouth, ready to eat the melon. This giant was about to open his mouth and eat a melon, but he didn't realize that there was a little girl hidden inside the melon. Just then, the old man spotted Sophie on the other side of the melon. He rushed to stop it, and said to the giant, "You can't eat this junk food. You can only eat people. That's what makes you a cannibal giant." The brainwashed giant thought the old man was right, so he threw away the smelly melon in his hand. At the same time, he tried to stomp on it. The wise old man had to give the giant his own stinky melon drink. The giant left the place satisfied. After the giant left, the wretched man, he said to the old man, "You are a disgrace to the world of giants." After the giant left, the old man immediately picked up the stinky melon and told Sophie to get out. Sophie struggled to get out of the disgusting melon. At the sight of Sophie's wretched face, the old man laughed along with her. He held Sophie in his hands. He rinsed off the residue from her body with water. He dried her by the fire and brought her a change of clothes. And in a hole in the tree, he made Sophie's bed and put a book on it. It was as if the giant was playing house. When Sophie saw the old man's behavior, she thought the old man was harmless. She was less wary of the old man, so she tried to talk to him. The old man had to go out to work, so he hid Sophie in a hole in a tree. Curious, Sophie climbed out. He was intrigued by everything. Inside the cave were all sorts of glass bottles. The glass bottles were filled with colorful fluorescent lights. The old man told her it was all the dreams he had captured. This is what he does when night falls, when humans are asleep. The old man brings these dreams to them, and now he's going out to capture them. Sophie wants the old man to take her with him. Unable to resist Sophie's persistence, the old man finally decided to take Sophie with him. When he went out, Sophie saw the giants lying asleep on the ground. The old man quietly walked around the giants. These giants were much taller than the old man. The old man looked like a doll to these giants. The old man walked gently. Suddenly a hand grabbed the old man. They were still spotted by the giants. This fierce giant was the lord of the island. He grabbed the old man by the leg. The old man was disturbing their rest. Sophie looked and hid in a car. The giant on the island was bored. They said they wanted to have some fun. They threw the old man around like a sandbag and put it on a ruined car. The giants put the car on the steep hill. Another giant also took the two cars and climbed to the top of the opposite hill and flattened the cars under his feet with his big feet, using the car as a pulley. This side of the car, the old man tried to escape, but he was grabbed by the hand. Then he pushed the old man down. This giant slid the two cars under his feet. The old man on the other side was also pushed down. It looked like the two were about to collide. Sophie is now desperately shaking the steering wheel to avoid the impact. Just then, the old man's head was on the lower part of the helmeted giant. He saw his hands shielding his lower part. He fell backwards in great pain. The giants were delighted by this wonderful moment, and just at that moment, lightning struck in the sky. It was raining heavily. The giants were afraid of the rain. They grabbed their props. They started to look for a place to hide from the rain. The old man also took advantage of the chaos and left with Sophie. But soon afterwards, there was a blanket at the feet of the fierce giant. That was Sophie's blanket. He then realized that the old man was hiding a human. He began to keep a close eye on the old man's whereabouts. For human flesh was a temptation to these giants. The giant watched the old man return to his home. He immediately led the other giants to the cave. The old man heard the commotion. He hid Sophie in a panic. The fierce giant told the old man to hand over the human. Without saying a word, he told the other giants to look for him. Sophie was terrified and hid from them everywhere. The giants smashed things everywhere. They smashed the old man's dream collection, and the dreams flew out of the bottle. The old man, who was always kind, could not stand it any longer. The giants were driven out of the house with fire sticks. Sophie hid in a hole in the tree. She spotted a picture of the queen hanging on the wall. She immediately thought of a way to get rid of the giant. Sophie immediately told the old man. The old man understood her idea and immediately had a nightmare and brought it to the queen. There was an army and giants who ate people. There was war and Sophie and the old man. It was hoped that the dream would make the queen aware of the threat posed by the giants. They came to the queen's bedside. They brought the dream to her. Soon the queen woke up frightened. And just then, Sophie also appeared through the window. She told the queen about Giant Island. The queen listened and accepted them. She didn't want her dream to become reality. A helicopter was sent out with the old man in tow. The old man wants to shame the giants through the queen's dreams. But before Sophie could start, the giant found out. Sophie was stunned. She broke the bottle containing the dream. All at once, the dreams went into the giant's mouth. Angry, the giant immediately attacked Sophie. When the old man arrived, he stopped him. The food was gone. The angry giant raised his fist at the old man. Just then the helicopter arrives. A rope was launched to trap the giant. Soon the giants of Giant Island were taken away by helicopter. They took the giants to a very remote and deserted island where they could not leave. The giant climbed to the top of the mountain. Looking at the helicopter, at that moment countless stink melons fell from the sky and a box of stink melon seeds placed by the queen. The giant will have to live on these stinky melons for the rest of his life. Sophie was finally adopted by the queen after completing her mission. Under the careful care of her secretary, she is finally given the freedom she craves.